In order to get ahead of disinformation, it is key to set up really effective monitoring tools and trends so that social listening becomes a part of your daily work. You can use Google Alerts as a way of automating this process so the information comes to you. You can type in your search terms or even a Boolean search query, decide how often you want alerts, and then just let this search engine give you email updates of the kinds of conversations that you want to be monitoring. You can also use Google Trends to see what kind of questions people are typing into their search bar. If you go to trends.google.com, you can change the country and it'll show you different search trends depending on the words that you ask it to look for, or search trends over time that you can compare and contrast. It is actually really powerful to see how some of these search queries change. What are the associated words that people normally search for with one specific topic? You can see them, how they change over time. You can embed them. You can download the data to dig into it a little bit more. And also always remember that Google is not the be all and end all. There are other search engines. This isn't the only one that people use to ask questions on, but it is one of the biggest ones and one of the most common ones that we all have on our phones and that we turn to when we have questions. Another tool that you can use to monitor conversations happening online is called Trends Map. This is a live map of trending conversations on Twitter, and it shows you almost like a heat map of the hashtags and the words that people are using to talk about all over the world. The bigger the kind of hashtag, the more the people are talking about it. Some of the free tools that it lets you use are powerful enough just to see what people are talking about, right? What conversations are happening that maybe you're not tuned into. Crowdtangle is a tool developed by Facebook that helps you monitor Facebook, Instagram, and Reddit. And they have made some public dashboards to monitor conversations around coronavirus and around specific big world events. They tend to make them for elections, for example. And what you get is something like this screenshot where each column shows you different search terms or different pages that it's displaying. So for example, the first column is media organizations in Canada on Facebook and Instagram. And if you use this little wheel, you can change the conditions upon which it shows you content from those sources. So right now it's set to hot, which means the things that are trending, but you can change that for stuff that is overperforming. So for example, things that are getting shared more than usual, and they become really useful spaces to get a quick snapshot of conversations that are happening online. If your newsroom has access to Crowdtangle proper, you can also create these public dashboards to share with other people and help you in your monitoring. The second tool that Crowdtangle has is a Chrome plugin called Crowdtangle Link Checker. Once you've installed it into your browser and you've logged in with Facebook, what you can do is activate it on whatever page on the internet or post or Instagram feed that you want, and it'll show you here how and how much it's been shared across Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, and Instagram. And then it lets you dig into it. You can download the data if you know how to do a little bit more of data work or journalism around it. And it can be really powerful to show you spread. So for example, if you find a problematic TikTok and you want to see where it's been shared outside of TikTok, you can use Crowdtangle's link checker to see where else this content has gone. When it comes to Twitter, Twitter lists are the most powerful tool that we have to organize what otherwise feels like an unending feed of tweets. Twitter list lets you monitor a group of accounts that you can make. You can also follow other people's Twitter lists. They let you monitor the content an account is publishing without having to follow them. And it's easy to share them by either following other colleagues' lists, or there's a tool that lets you copy other people's Twitter lists into your own, so then you can add to it. And then you can use these lists on TweetDeck to display them as different columns or mix them up with Boolean search queries and search terms to really leverage the power of monitoring on Twitter in a more strategic way. If you're going to venture into doing some reporting in closed messaging apps and darker spaces of the web, remember that there are ethical questions that you and your newsroom should work through and think about, but also online security questions for you as a journalist, a researcher, or a reporter. We have a guide at First Draft on some of the ethical questions around closed groups, messaging, and apps, and a couple of tips and tricks also on how you can make sure that you are protected in the work that you're doing. Just like we would have these conversations before going to cover a protest or a potentially violent situation offline, we need to have these same conversations before we venture into these spaces online.